we want to record this? Do we need, oh, we are recording. Okay. Girl, Amy's the best if you guys don't know that. So, all right, just a quick kind of overview, introduction. We're really grateful to all of you for joining us today. Amy and I are super excited to see you, and we just are happy that you took some time out of your day to come learn a little bit more about EMBARK and how it can help you in your advising sessions with your students. So to give you just a little bit of background, Amy and I are both working on a project as part of our current strategic plan. And our there's 18 objectives, so there are 18 teams. Our strategic plan objective is to, and I quote, decrease the percentage of students who change their primary programs. This does mean essentially after the first year, if I'm remembering correctly, Amy. So it's not necessarily right off the bat because we know that they kind of change their mind, but we want to see less students changing their primary programs because we want to get them in the right place kind of as soon as possible. So we really have brainstormed several different solutions or approaches, ways to address this objective. But I think that the overarching theme that we keep finding is that a lot of it comes back to students having a really great advising experience as soon as possible. So we want to avoid them wasting time, energy, money, so on and so forth, pursuing something that's like not a good fit, or gosh, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. So we really have a lot of faith and put a lot of emphasis on our advisors. To that end, more than half of our current students have completed the MAP EMBARK Career Interest Inventory, which is what we're talking about today. It's designed to show them career choices that match up with their personal interests, and it can kind of help them either confirm that they're on the right track or give them ideas about something else that might be a good option for them. So the results of this survey are a really great starting point for an advising conversation. We have found that a lot of folks are sort of aware that the EMBARK exists, but maybe they're not really comfortable with it or don't always know how to access it. So we just think it's really important to share that with you. We do recognize that not every student has taken the EMBARK, especially our CCP students. I don't know if it's realistic to think we'll ever get 100% completion, but we really think that there's enough students that have taken it that it can be really beneficial to you as advisors. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy, who is like the guru on this, and she just has some really great information to share with you guys about the survey.
So thank you, Mary. I'm so excited to be talking about this. So I'm talking about the EMBARK today from two fronts. So one, as our QEP coordinator for MAP, My Academic Pathway, this is definitely something that came out of MAP, and that's why we're using it. But the other side is, I was an academic advisor for 3.5 years, because I'm now a success coach. But when I was doing that, I used the EMBARK every time before I met with a student. And the reason why, and I would go in and see what were their results before they ever walked in my door. Why? Because it's like getting a secret insight, a secret view into what students are thinking and what they're considering. Because sometimes when you have those conversations, tell me what you're thinking about, what are your long-term goals? They don't tell you everything. So it's like a great shortcut to find out what careers are they considering, what programs are they considering. So you can have a great conversation with them as an advisor or a success coach once you get that information. So we have 3 goals for today's session. The first one is we want you to be able to find the EMBARK assessment in general. 2, we want you to be able to find the results of the EMBARK assessment and use it. So we'll talk about the login information and all of that. And then 3rd, how to actually use those results in an advising session. So give me just a second to share my screen because I thought it would be much better to share my screen and show you live how everything works rather than doing everything in a PowerPoint. So fantastic. This is now appearing as the CCCC webpage. The first thing I want to point out, and we'll make sure this gets emailed to everyone, is we actually do have this great handout about the RIASIC, because the EMBARK is actually divided into 2 parts. One is the RIASIC, and the other is the CDI. So the RIASIC is another term for the Holland Code, and it's basically a way of determining students' career interests, and it's divided into things like realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, conventional. And it gives you a little summary at the bottom about what all of these things are. From here, we also have this great link that takes you directly to the EMBARK. So you can type in cccc.edu/EMBARK. But the most important part is the second page, in my opinion, because it clearly maps all of our programs by the RIASIC score, right? And so if you're working with a student right off the bat and you know, oh, they're more social and they're more this, you can have conversations with them because maybe you don't get every single option or every single result right when you are looking at their individual results. And actually, I'm going to stick this in the chat right now so that you guys have a copy of this, but yes, it will still be emailed out. Okay. So the next thing that I want to talk about is the other half of the EMBARK is the career decision inventory. So the career decision inventory is just a fancy way of saying how ready is a student to make a decision about college and their program. And that's really helpful information because a student might not sit in your office and tell you how indecisive they actually are. So let's go on. And the next thing that we're going to look at is how to actually get to the EMBARK. Okay. So from the CCCC webpage, the easiest way to do it, if you don't know that URL, which is www.cccc.edu/EMBARK, you can go to apply and register. And then from here, this is always a shortcut I take. I go to new student, but any of the ones across the top will work. You go to new student, and the EMBARK is actually the second step that they have to do when they're applying to the college. So, if I click on EMBARK assessment, you're going to get the welcome page, and it's just an overview about how long it's going to take. That's a quick career inventory to help them determine their career choices. And we have this great guidance from Morgan that says, try not to think too much about it, just like choose your first choice. And then from here, you hit start. And at this point, it's like information that we get from the students. So their full name, their first name, their last name, their date of birth, their email address. Now, a word of caution, like any data, it's only as good as whatever the person typed in. So sometimes my students will misspell their name, misspell their last name, give me the wrong date of birth because it's they've clicked the wrong key on the keyboard, and the same thing for their email address. And the reason I mention this is because when you go to find their information later on, we need to remember user error, when people are inputting information in a form. And the one thing you will notice that is missing from this information is the student ID. And the reason why is that a student is just applying to the college. They are not going to have a student ID yet. So we didn't want to make that a barrier for students completing this. So that is not there. So the next thing that you see after you get that basic information, demographic information about the student is, listing all the occupations that they're considering right now. So this is the first part where we are looking at the CDI, so the career decision inventory. And it tells us what occupation is your first choice, how satisfied are you with the responses above. If I had to make a choice right now, I'd be afraid to make a bad choice. And so all of these questions are here to help us get an idea or a picture of how confident are you in what you're thinking about doing right now. And it's extremely helpful, let me tell you, when I'm working with students on the other side. And the CDI was actually developed by, I cannot remember the name of the folks, but it's real research. It's something that multiple people are using. And it's just helpful to get that information. And the more occupations someone lists, the less likely they are to be confident about their options. So we're not going to fill all this in, but you'll hit next. And then the next part that students get are actually the RIASIC part of it. So that's the part that we talked about before, which is the realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional. So if we jump back to this, we just ask students to say they're unsure or dislike something. So they like selling automobiles, they're unsure, they dislike it. And they do this for a little, I think it's 2 pages, and then you hit next. And then you come to the end of it, and you're, I think it's a few pages, yeah. it's not that long. Students do this on their cell phones all the time. It's very, very easy. And then they get to their own results. But before we look at their results, I want to look at it from the advisor side, because as advisors, we actually get so much more information than students get. Okay. So we just covered the first thing that we were discussing, right, which is number one, how to find the EMBARK assessment. Now we're moving on to that second stage, right, where it's how to find the results of the EMBARK assessment. So I am skipping a little bit, but I will tell you outright that you can get the login information by going to the intranet. So remember, you can get to the staff intranet by clicking on the portal, and then from the portal link, you can after you click on the portal link, there's now an option to get to the intranet from there. And the next thing I clicked on is helpful files by department. And again, the handout we're going to look for right now, I'll email to you, but this is just so you can help get back there in the future. So helpful files by department, and then we're going down to map, My Academic Pathway QEP. Because remember, I told you all of this came out of MAP, My Academic Pathway, and the QEP. So when I click on that, it takes me to just a handful of resources. But the one that we really want to look at today is this PDF that says EMBARK Career Inventory Login Overview. So if I click on this, it'll actually give me a PDF, and the most important information for today is all of this information at the top, right? So this is the student page. This is what the public sees. This is the super important special link to actually log in as faculty and staff. And what's highlighted here in yellow are the username and password. We're not going to go over the rest of this, but it talks in depth about what the career decision inventory is, and the assessment information, so the RIASIC and all of those things. Yay, super secret squirrel stuff. I love it, Mary. Exactly. So from here, if we, let's see, I think I've already clicked in and logged in, but you'll just click on this link. And then you'll log in. It's really easy. Username is admin. And then I just, copy and paste this usually because I am not going to remember that. So admin, oops, lowercase, sign in. Okay. So now what we get are all the results, and the most recent results are what we're looking at. So fantastic. We have actually had a whole bunch of students taking this today. We're prospective students. And this is really important that you don't share this information with other folks, just because we want to keep everyone's information private. But from here, remember how I had talked about in that form on the front side that we only have their first name, their last name, or their birthday. So this is where you can do some searching. And so, for example, I'm going to use a very specific example because I think it's hilarious. So we're using Darwin because Mr. Scott Byington, Dean Byington, used this option a number of years ago. So we can see that we actually have a number of Darwins, but the Darwin that I want is Charles Darwin, and he was born February 12th, 1809. And you can see with this record that it was taken in 2018. And this is important because you can sort this information, and however you sort is, not going to affect what other people see. But this is helpful when you are searching for someone named like Smith or something like that, and you need to, you just need to be able to narrow it down a little bit easier. And I also like sorting by date taken, so I know that I always have the most recent one. So in this case, we're going to click on Charles Darwin. And from here, this is the super secret information that I'm excited to share with you about, which is what you can see as an advisor. So we see it's Charles R. Darwin. Oh, and folks, if you go in here and you are looking at an inventory result and it doesn't have a student ID, please go ahead and type in the student ID here and then hit save, because it will always be saved going forward. And that's important when we analyze information on the other end. But regardless, moving on. So we see, again, Scott took this. Thank you, Mary, for doing that every semester with your ACA roster. I appreciate that. He's born on February 12th, 1809, the day he took it. And then you can download a student copy, an office use copy, or the RIASIC card option. And usually students have already printed their version off when they get their results. But I love the office use card because it appears as this beautiful PDF that I can print for a student and always have in their file. But going back to these results before we look at that. So now we get that idea of what Charles Darwin's results are. So we see that's mostly investigative with a little bit of conventional. And this is important because I can jump back to this handout that we have and look at what is, conventional and investigative. So one option is paralegal, another option is information technology. Now, I do want to say, and I do tell this to students, this is not prescriptive, right? This is just an idea of the things that you enjoy work-wise. It doesn't mean if you get these 2 letters that you have to do this job and you can't do something else. It just might mean that, in some areas you might need to work on some skills a little bit more in order to be able to do something, or maybe you're already set to go, even if if not all of your letters match. So just keep that in mind and remind that for your students that it is not prescriptive. They can do anything that they put their hearts and minds to. So the next thing that I want to look at is the best part ever, which is the career decision inventory questions. And the reason why this is important is it gives you a score. And the higher the score is, it means the less likely a student is to actually make a decision. So we see that the student is considering 5 different occupations. And in the case of Charles Darwin, yes, he actually, I think, did all of those. However, most students would not be this varied, right? And it would be a red flag that we need to have more conversations. Next, seeing what is their first choice. It's a great way to have conversations in the future. Next, how satisfied are they with the responses above? They're not sure. If they had to make a choice right now, they would be afraid to make that choice. And making up their mind about a career has been a long and difficult problem for them. True. And they're confused about the whole problem of deciding on a career. So in this one, it's false. But as you can see, this person is pretty indecisive. And in this case, this information refers student to developmental faculty advisor. This is something where admissions actually reviews all this information when a student comes in, and they will refer students to a DFA, or if it's a 9 or a 10, they'll refer them to Miss Mary Parker for more in-depth career guidance, right? Because, admissions has time to do some level of talking, but they can't, kill a student completely if they do not know what they want to do. And so that is why this is helpful. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is, so we have our RIASIC results here, and I did jump back to that handout a minute ago, but we have all of the suggested programs that match with the first 2, letters. So in this case, investigative and conventional. These are all possibilities for the student. And the reason why this is also important is students don't realize the wealth of opportunity out there. In other words, they don't know that some of these careers exist. And so sometimes it's like an option to discuss, hey, have you considered, computer aided drafting? And the student goes, I have no idea what that is. So you get to talk to them about that and expand their horizons, because it might be something they wanted to do and they never realized they wanted to do it. So it is all very, very exciting. And again, I click on the office use PDF, and I have this beautiful printout where you have the RIASIC results here. You come down here, you have the career decision inventory results. And if you want to thank someone for this beautiful printout, it's going to be Morgan in marketing. He did an amazing job automating this for every person that takes this. So far, we've covered 2 of the things we wanted to talk about today. One is how to find the EMBARK assessment. The second one is how to find the results of the EMBARK assessment. And remember, we go to the helpful files by department for that. We go down to map my academic pathway QEP. And then from here, we click on the only one that's a PDF. and then we get the login information, faculty, staff, and then the username, password right there. But the third thing I want to talk about is how do you use those results in advising sessions? I touched on a lot of that earlier. So in other words, being able to have a conversation with students, like about what they're interested in. So, and sometimes there's red flags with working with undecided students. What the results are don't always match up with what they're telling you. And sometimes I just ask a student straight out, like, did you really take this? And sometimes they're like, no, like I just did it to do it, which happens, and that's fine, because an assessment is only as good as the information you put in. But sometimes they really did it, and it's a matter of trying to figure out the results that they have versus what they're saying that they want to do. So that's interesting. But the last question I usually get from other advisors is like, this is fantastic, this is great, but how do I remember to do this for all of my students? I just want to show you one last thing, and that's this. So I put together this Google Doc template when I was an academic advisor. And so every one of my students had this template. So for the student, whenever I met with them, I would go in and I would write their name, their ID, the date I did this eval. I would go in and determine what their RIASEC information is by looking at the map EMBARK and then putting it here. So I knew to go back and talk to them about it. I would put their RISE information here, so I already have it in place when we were going to have that first conversation. And then sometimes the student has already told me what their transfer ideas are in email. Sometimes they don't. But I would have all of this. So every time I would go to talk to a student, I could pull this up, see where we left off, because I would, put meeting notes in there at the bottom. I would plan by the semester. And then the best part is I had it set up so it would automatically tabulate for the hours that they earned down here in the totals. And then it would tell me how many they have left, all of those good things. But this was a really good way to check in. Every time I would meet with a student, I was like, are you still interested in this transfer college, in this major? Like, does your RIASEC still line up? I wouldn't say it in quite those words. And then making sure with their RISE, so like if they've already taken their English, we make sure we get their math in, or vice versa. So you guys, I feel like that was a lot of talking, but it's all things I wanted to share with you all. And so I'm going to pause right now, and I'm going to see what questions you all have for me. Hey, Audra. Yes.
I'm such a pain, aren't I? I was curious. I love that template that you just showed us. Is there any way that you might be able to share that with us?
Yes, if you send me an email, I will happily share it with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and let me put my email in right now. So that's my email. You can send me an email. And what's great, and I didn't scroll to the bottom, but it has all of those, like section 2 and section 3 courses are listed in there. And so students could go through and look at it. And what was great is every student has their own copy, and they have the link to their individual page, so they could go back and look at it over time.
Yeah, that's cool. I have an electronic one that I do for them, but it's not as nice as yours. It doesn't calculate all the stuff. So I think that'd be really, really helpful. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. What other thoughts and questions do you guys have for today? Okay, so I'm curious if you guys are thinking about what questions you have for me. What do you think of this? Do you think this is something that you would want to use? Do you think this could be helpful in working with your students?
I'm taking their silence as a yes.
Okay, we're going with yes. Ooh, Jennifer uses all the time. I love it. Lincoln, yes, yes, yes. Marianne, absolutely. And Audra will be using this. Fantastic. I am so excited. Oh, and Candace will too. And Derek in admissions, who use this all the time. Yeah, Derek, I thought it was so funny that you were coming today. I was like, you probably use it more than I do. It must be like 20 times a day. Yeah. So, I think it's a great tool. You get that insight into a student that you might not have gotten without, long drawn out conversation. So I love this shortcut. And I hope you guys, use this shortcut and, in the future. So, yeah.
And I just want to say thank you to Amy for going through all that in detail. I think I even learned some stuff today about EMBARK. I'll be honest, it's hard for me to use with a CCP student sometimes, but I think I want to make a commitment to try to ask them to complete that assessment. I think it would be really helpful in our advising session. So I hope you guys feel like Amy covered all 3 of her goals today. She's so organized. I love that she was like, we have 3 things we're going to cover, and she did it. So we appreciate you all taking the time to join us. This, I believe, will be recorded and will be available later. So if you need to come back to it, also, if you have any questions about EMBARK, Amy is definitely the guru, but either one of us would be happy to help connect you to whatever it is that you need. So we just really, I think you all do a fabulous job. I think our college has come such a long way with advising recently, but we want to make sure that you have the tools at your disposal that will help you hopefully save some time and everything with students. So thank you. Amy, do you have anything you want to add before we close out?
This is a very strange ask, but talk to this with your colleagues, right? I know it's a busy time this semester, not everyone can be here, but share it with them. And if they have any questions, they can ask me. Definitely they can ask everyone in admissions because they use it all the time. But I would love for more people to use this.
Absolutely. And we are hoping that this presentation, I think we want to do this annually, but we will try to probably do it in October before registration opens. We just didn't quite have our scheduling lined up for this current semester, but this is something that we will present at least annually and also by request anytime. So if you've got a group together doing advising, let us know and we'd be happy to come in and chat about it.
So thank you, everyone. I hope you have a wonderful Thursday, and I cannot wait to eat Thanksgiving food next week.
Yes. Go out and enjoy the sunshine.
Yes.
Thanks, everybody.